This is Save Thunder Farms by John Purdue. So overall, we're gonna go over the case summary first. The Thunder Farms Brewery is going to be facing backlash for the incident at a recent wedding where the groom's mom, who is visually impaired, did fall during the first dance ceremony, and they are now, instead of enjoying their wedding, they're having to deal with the impacts of his mom being in the hospital. The people that are involved in this is going to be the CEO of Thunder Farms, the product venue manager, and the photographer, who also happens to be the CEO's son. So, a little setup for this case is that the CEO actually has already reprimanded the venue manager, even though the venue manager who wanted to move the haystacks that caused the injury of this woman recommended for them to be moved in order to maintain the flow of the venue and also create a safe venue for the people who have already ordered the venue to stay for their wedding. However, the photographer has a proven history of overstepping the boundaries of the photographer and getting into the way of the workers, and is the reason why the haystacks were not removed against the manager's orders because he thought they looked better. So, my conflict management steps is I'm going to take this more as a collaborative style. I really think that having all three of these parties collaborate with each other and figure out what's better for them in the long run is going to be much better, as well as having them see fairly. Mediator, which will be my role, is to allow a strong listening aspects to ensure that all parties involved are happy. This can be a very frustrating event, especially because the company is going to be dealing with losses, as stated in the conflict resolution steps that I have. Is they have to deal with the fact that they've already had cancellations for this venue due to the issue that happened previously. So having them collaborate and also that they see fairly and to ensure that all parties are happy is going to be extremely difficult. Having set up one-on-ones with me and the CEO and me and the venue manager and me and the photographer is going to create, one, where they can set up the mediation forum, but two, where it will allow them to know that I want to get their side of the story first, even though I'm going to have all three of them meet in the same room. So after that, once we have the meeting, they need to have good mediation and to establish solid form of communication where they don't feel like they're going to be interrupted or viewed downly by the other people who are in this, especially the venue manager, seeing that the CEO and the CEO or the photographer have a family tied connection. That could be really awkward in this setup. This will also be used as a form to allow the groups to delegate so that everyone is appeased. So this is my form. I have the number of employees in the work, the type of work performed, the length that the issues have existed. The reason why I put that in there is solely for the fact of the CEO's son, who has a history of this. We need to expose that issue. That cannot happen moving forward at all. That is getting into the way of the venue manager, and in this case, it did result in someone getting hurt. So the role of the mediator. I need to be open to all parties, and I need to build a strong trust that all the parties are treated fairly as stated before. I also need to form a rule of neutrality. I cannot take sides, and I have to make sure that every single aspect of this is being taken seriously. The flow of communication has got to be upward, downward, and all around this room so that we can ensure that every single problem is heard, and even if it can't be fixed right away with this group mediation, what we can do is we could put it out there and get it addressed and get it on the board so that we can chop it up, get everything figured out. This also is good because with good flow of communication, it means everyone gets their chance to say what they need to say. And not saying everything you need to say in this is what's going to cause issues further down the line. So, my resolution of conflict steps. So, I'm going to form an unbiased presentation along with good forms of compromise to ensure that everybody can be happy. However, the first thing we need to take into aspect is the CEO, since he is going to be losing money. The venue manager can save that. She's well known in the community. She has strong ties, and all of us believe she can turn that around. So, the venue manager is not truly at fault. What she needs to do is, if she knows there's something wrong with the environment, since she is the manager, she needs to knock it out. If it needs to be moved, they gotta get moved. It doesn't matter what anybody says. She is the manager of the venue. The CEO is the only one that can stop her from performing her duties as action. The chain of command must be set in this. That has got to be clear to the photographer. Now, for the photographer, what would help him is if they had a second site. It doesn't have to be that far away. It could be maybe behind the venue or to the side of the venue where it's out of the way, where people won't be walking on over it, but where he can still have an area to take pictures. This will not only allow the venue manager to have her own space and the photographer to have his own space, but will also allow for a disconnect between them. It will allow for the flow of both of their work plans to not clash, even though they have to be in the same area. So, my plan to minimize backlash and prevent this issue from happening in the future. First off, the CEO needs to come out with a public apology, and they need to apologize to the family. If they have not already, that needs to be number one. The other thing is they absolutely have to create a form that says, when you sign up for this venue and you pay, we are not liable for any damages, injuries, death, anything that happens in this, because you are in the venue. We create the venue for you. We ensure that there's no safety hazards. You have got to do this on your own. It needs to be held liable through the person, not through the company. The other thing that needed to be viewed into this is how the visually impaired woman was able to walk on haystacks in the first place. So, creating a full plan around this and ensuring that the CEO won't have his losses cut too much, the venue manager is not going to have any pushback from the CEO or the CEO's son, because the venue manager overall has the final say in what goes on in the venue. Now, the photographer around the photographer area has some input, because the photographer needs the lighting and the backdrop and everything to make these memories last within the forms of a picture. But fixing this is step one of communication between all three of them when the formation of a venue comes, to ensure that no more injuries can happen again. And that is it for my presentation. Thank you for listening.